coach is on the hot seat, according to you. Okay. But I just believe, I don't know where I was in all of that, but I just think David Shaw is in a different place at a different program. And yeah, I just think it's a different situation, dynamic.
Okay, I'll recircle back to what I was saying about the 10 national championships. And the question being is, when or if does Nick Saban retire within that 10-year window? I think will determine a lot of who wins the next 10 years. Would you agree with that?
Well, it based on past experience, absolutely.
So if he doesn't retire, I feel like Alabama's going to have the most. But I think closely behind him is going to be Georgia. I think the next team to take the Alabama-like dynasty is Georgia, which I'm sure all the non-SEC fans are going to absolutely love that, being absolutely dominated by another SEC team for 20 years. But it looks like that's the way it's going. Ohio State, I think, could get one or two. Probably Clemson gets one or two, but I think the majority would be Georgia. Would you agree with that?
So Nick Saban is 70 years old right now, I believe. Correct? Does that sound right?
I believe 70.
So if he's 70, let's say he's in great shape. Let's say he coaches, it's all just a guessing game by all of us. Let's say it's like 75. So if Nick Saban coaches for 5 more years, what is your final tally for the next 10 seasons?
Bama has at least two.
Okay.
Georgia has 4.
4 out of 10.
4.
Okay.
Yeah. Ohio State will have 1.
Okay.
Clemson will have 1. I'm at 8.
You are.
I'm at 8. You know what? Give me Baylor. Baylor will win 1.
Baylor. Okay.
Yeah, Baylor. If they keep Jay Veranda and keep building up. I mean, they're already in the Big 12 title game in year 2? If they just keep a head coach that's decent instead of losing them to the NFL or whatever, I feel like they can be really good. And trying to think of another. Texas A&M. Texas A&M will get 1. Break their long streak of 1939.
Okay. Here we go. For the next 10 years, according to the Real MVP, we've got 10 national championships, Georgia 4, Alabama 2, Clemson 2, Ohio State 1, Texas A&M 1, Baylor 1. Who am I missing?
That should be 10, right?
Okay. Is that 10?
I believe that's 10 based on my math.
4 and 2 and 2 is 8. That only leaves 2 other national championships.
I said I had Clemson at 1.
Okay.
2.
Okay. I can't necessarily argue with that too much, except Baylor. I just don't see that. I just don't see them with enough going on. I don't see them with enough mojo. I've never seen it before. They've never been a serious contender. Yes, certain people can get on here and talk about their really good teams with RG3 and Bryce Petty and the various times that they've been, this is a nice little Baylor story that they've reached the brink of the playoff or whatever. But yeah.
Well, part of me is thinking that because the Big 12 is going to get a much weaker, Baylor could be that team that fills the Oklahoma void and just keeps getting in there. And maybe one year they pull it off. Is it likely? Probably not, but it's possible. And I've got, the SEC winning 70% of the national championships in that window?
Yeah.
That feels about right.
It does. At least.
So the final, yeah, at least. I didn't want to say 100% because I didn't want to be accused of homerism, and I don't think it's going to happen anyway.
What would it be in the last 10 seasons? That goes back to 2012. I think it would be 60%. Because Clemson's got 2, Ohio State and Florida State. So that's 4. So the SEC must have 6.
The final thing, Mark, I'll ask you about is the SEC has 2 current proposals during their meeting about what to do when Oklahoma and Texas join the SEC. Have you seen those proposals?
I have not. I need to look at them and respond. So throw them my way, and I'll look deeper into it.
Well, there's 2 main proposals going on. You've got the 18 conference, which is basically what we got, with a kind of like a pod thing, and then you got the non-team, where you have some selected rivals. I believe it's 3 selected rivals, and you'll play everybody every few years based on the math. But the one school, Mark, that's the main opposition of the non-team conference proposal is Kentucky. Because from what the reporting is Kentucky doesn't want to play Louisville along with the non-SEC conference game.
Well, based on Louisville's approach to scheduling, I'm not surprised. I think they've shown their hand in regards to the way they want to schedule.
Yeah. Well, Mark, that's all I got for you. Make sure to hit the like button. The final thing I'll ask you is, can you please ask Golden Blue why he has South Carolina winning the SEC East?
Who does?
Golden Blue Dude.
Oh, does he? Yeah, well, I will ask him, but I'm going to guess that I think that for people that make predictions, many of us try to look ahead to say, okay, what can I find that's ahead of the curve? Can I get ahead of some program that's about to break out instead of being the guy that just gives you chalk, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Oklahoma in the playoff or whatever, and then we miss the breakout from whomever that's going to be. Tries to get ahead of that. But in no way does South Carolina have any kind of roster that's anywhere close to Georgia.
Mark, they're not better. I don't think South Carolina's better than Kentucky, Tennessee.
No, they're
right
not.
Now. Florida's 50-50, just depending on how their season goes.
Yeah, and this is not the season necessarily to pick South Carolina, because I know that they've got their 2 non-division games are Texas A&M and Arkansas. So they got to deal with those 2 games outside the division.
So if you could please ask him that'd be greatly appreciated. But hit the like button on the stream, guys. See you next time.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. So we have had the electricity hold out on us for a call. So that's a good thing. It's good to pay your electric bill. And yeah, we'll be dealing with electricity once we get done with this. No, we got to deal with the West Virginia show. So you got to join us for that at 8:00 Eastern time. So I guess that's going to be a Saturday project to deal with the electric. So Joey Foster is telling us that GBD did not predict South Carolina to win the East, but he picked the Gamecocks to upset Georgia. So big difference there. Big difference there. And before we take our next call, we'll, of course, give it up for McD, who is picking Maryland to win the national championship at some point here in 2028. 6 seasons. If Maryland could break 500 in the Big Ten, that would be, they should throw a parade. If they can break 500, if Maryland can go 5-4 in the Big Ten, they should throw a parade and put up a banner in the stadium. Do that. Don't even think about winning the division, let alone the conference, let alone a national championship or a major bowl game on your way to a national championship. 5-4 in the Big Ten. Maryland, 5-4 in the Big Ten, and I will allow you to throw a parade. On to our next call here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, how's it going, Mark? This is Dr. C.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey, I'm sure you may have touched bases on this topic recently, but I was just going to discuss the latest interview with Lane Kiffin in regards to NIL.
Where was he? Was this on Feinbaum?
No, I saw it on a YouTube channel. They were discussing what he had talked about, where he said that what's going to happen with the NIL, and he's concerned with it, is that it's really going to be through about 8 teams that really have the money to make, to get the 5 and 4 stars. Then there'll be a second tier. And then finally the third tier, which does not have the money to really compete for top recruits. But in a way sorry, my dog is wanting attention. But in a way, does NIL, does it come down to the rich stealing from the rich?
Is that a dog? Thing? Or is somebody beating a child back there? Sounds like a 6-month screaming. Wow, you got a dog with that.
Dog.
Okay. We've got a dog.
It's a little terrier.
We've got a dog here in the neighborhood that lives, I don't know how far away, but fortunately it lives so far away that like really early in the morning, you know how you can kind of hear things at night and you don't know if it's real or if you're just imagining it. It's so far away and in the distance, you just don't know if it's in your mind, you're actually hearing it. It took me like weeks to determine, okay, that's real. That's real. And it's like way off in the distance and it's a dog that just howls like all night. So anyway, you got to deal with your dog there. My son's a dog trainer. So if you're within driving distance, I've got a suggestion for you there.
It's all right. Yeah, no, it's just that my girlfriend he saw her through the window, so he's got to go say hi to her. So
okay.
He freaks out whenever But what I was saying is I've been kind of down on NIL, but is NIL kind of a good thing? Basically it's stealing from Alabama. Is that's a good thing for college football, isn't it? Because they'll keep these Southern California kids at USC. It'll keep the Texas kids at Texas, and Alabama's going to have to find people in the South. Do you think NIL will maybe bring some parity?
I think that if we were living in a perfect world, I would apply that perfection and then utopia to other portions of life outside of college football, first and foremost. And we've had to see those up close and personal the last few weeks. But anyway, back to college football. If this was all operating perfectly, then we would have an equal amount of money for everyone. But of course, that's a fairyland. Mm-hmm. That's a fairy tale. We live in America. Whatever you make, you make. Whatever you're able to hustle, you hustle. And whatever advantages you have in regards to your proximity, your location, and your connections, that's what matters. Because I would love to see, you would genuinely see who can run the best football operation and who has the best coach and the best coaching staff if everything was equal. Because even pre-NIL, obviously everything wasn't equal. Northwestern can't compete with Ohio State. Vandy can't compete with Alabama. I would love to see if they could, though. And then we would really know who can coach and who can run an organization. Okay, back to real life. Well, I think that's the great question is, who does this benefit? When you look at the elite Do they all stay elite, or are there some of the elite that will not be able to remain elite because they don't have quite the resources that others do? And are there second and third tier programs now that will then be able to kick into gear and tap the resources? Well, the early indications are that Miami's well equipped, Texas and Texas A&M are well equipped, USC's well equipped. Those are our initial indicators. And then in addition to that, it seems as though Ohio State's going to be fine and Michigan's going to be fine.
Yeah. What did you think of Ryan Day mentioned that he believes that they need about $13 million a year to keep the roster, to keep Ohio State. Is that really that much money? Because it's 85 players on the team. It doesn't seem like a lot of money.
I was surprised that he was that specific, but because if everyone's informed of what kind of decisions are made and what kind of money they're bringing in, then you wouldn't want to cap that. You wouldn't want the business community to become comfortable if they're able to raise $12.5 million and figure, okay, we're just about there, we're good. So I was a bit surprised that he placed that specific of a number on it. Number one. Number two, well, I don't think so. So we had James Coleman on here, Florida State fullback, about 15 years ago, and knows a lot about NIL in particular, obviously knows about the locker room, stays in contact with tons of players and coaches, does media work, just is really in tune with what's going on. And he claims, and I tend to believe this, not that I wouldn't believe him, but I'm talking about he only has a slice of knowledge of what's going on, but it's certainly far beyond myself and anybody I can imagine on this chat, that these numbers are blown out of proportion. And I can see that where we see what Bryce Young got, we saw what Quinn Ewers got, and we see a few guys step out with these numbers, and we tend to think, okay, well, this is happening all over the place with everybody. And I did see a couple, I don't want to call them projections, they were estimations of what's going on right there on across the board in terms of all that. And it mostly had to do with, most of these guys are pulling in hundreds of dollars, $1,500, $1,800, doing this, doing a little bit of that, a little bit of Instagram, doing a podcast, whatever. Again, we get fixated by Quinn Ewers and Bryce Young. So $13 million for 85 scholarship athletes. Did you do the math? What was that again?
I didn't check the math, but it just didn't seem like a lot of money.
Well, if it's
for a program,
if it's 100 players, it's $130,000 a player.
It comes out to $152,941
with 85 scholarships.
17 cents. 152, yeah, per person.
Yeah,
152,000.
What's wrong with that?
Player. No, I think it's fine.
Well, and I'm not saying that just because most people would be fine with making $152,000 a year, but I even think that that's to keep that up every year. So you're tapping the business community over and over and over and over. So think about that. It's one thing to go out there and say, let's raise $13 million for Ohio State football. Okay, we could probably drum that up the first year. But when we're talking 5-6 years down the road, well, the same businesses aren't going to be able to cough up, their 500,000 of that slice every year. It's going to be taxing on these businesses.
Yeah, and I mean, these are the big markets. Imagine if you're Iowa State.
Yeah.
I mean, the local barbecue joint that wants to sponsor, or a student or whatnot, exactly. ain't coming up with 150,000. Yeah.
Yeah, Ohio State's not in a prime position, but they're certainly in a good place. Columbus is a top 30 market in the country, so there's plenty of business there, and it's a growing city. Cleveland's close, Cincinnati's close. There's plenty of business. They're in one of the larger places outside of Miami and Los Angeles that has college football. They're probably Miami, Los Angeles, Seattle. Who else plays in a major market? And I'm not talking about like Evanston, Illinois being close to Chicago. I mean, truly plays. I guess Pitt plays in Pittsburgh, but they don't care about them. So I got to think, Austin, Texas is obviously burgeoning. That's a huge market that just grows and grows and grows and grows. And Texas, of course, has that sphere of influence, Houston, Dallas. So that's enormous. Yeah, I can't.
Oregon with Nike.
Yeah. If you're looking at
what about
that.
What about Syracuse? Because New York's the biggest market, right? The biggest market
New York City
in the country.
That's 4.5 hours away from Syracuse. I don't know that anybody in New York City cares about Syracuse. As I understand it,
I was thinking what
the biggest college football alumni bases, as I understand, in New York City are Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State's up there.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, but yeah, that's a great point. I think Napier said that they would need about $20 million to keep Florida, in good recruiting stance as far as NIL.
Well, I would guess when you think of it this way, so you've got those 85 players we're talking about. So they're currently on the roster. So let's say they're rolling this out this second. Today, they got to start writing checks. And then you got a 2022 recruiting class that obviously just replaced some of those players that are moving on through graduation in the NFL. So they kind of replace each other to a certain extent. But for a certain period of time, you've got an overlap where you're still playing your 4-year roster that's current, your players in the 4 various classes, plus redshirt seniors, etc. Plus you're making those overtures to your next recruiting class that gets signed in December before you're done playing and before those guys cycle out. So I guess it would have to be a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I think when the NCAA agreed to this NIL thing, I think they really were just thinking, hey, the students that can profit off of their YouTube channel or their Instagram, let's go ahead and let them get some money off of that. I don't know if they thought it was going to convert to this. And I mean, they should have.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just seems like it's just like it just looks like, I don't know. I just see dark days coming until this thing gets, worked out. Because I don't know.
Have the dark days already arrived? I tend to agree with you. I don't know. Some people say it's just going to work itself out and everything's going to be fine. But wow. I don't know what to tell you about what the NCAA anticipated. I just know that Johnny Manziel got in trouble in 2013, the summer of 2013, even before the season started. So this is 9 years ago. And name, image, likeness was the hot topic, that shouldn't these guys be able to profit from this? And you can go to a Texas A&M game and you see number 2 jerseys filling up 80% of the stadium. And we all know they were purchased because of Johnny Manziel. Why can't he make a buck? Why wouldn't the NCAA? It was just so obvious this was coming. This isn't even something that I gave much thought to. I didn't think about it, but I knew it. I posted videos in 2013 saying, all right, time to make up guidelines and rules and think this through and get lawyers involved and just figure out what this is going to mean. And here we are 9 years later, and they just let it pass through last July, which they had to, but they didn't do anything to control it, to get a handle on it, to understand what needs to be considered.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it was, like everything, it just seems like the NCAA always makes a terrible decision. No matter what they come up with, it's like they get in a room and think of 10 ideas and pick the worst one. And it just feels that way with this. You know, and I think what's going to end up happening, we're going to have 2 or 3 seasons of things as they are. And I think it's just going to come to a head, and it's going to go to Washington. And there's going to be changes, like massive changes to this. But it's going to be interesting. We'll see where it goes.
Well, I appreciate the call.
Of course. Hey, I appreciate you, Mark. Thanks.
Absolutely. Have a good night. Thanks so much. Well, I certainly would hope that Washington would deal with some other things first before they look at NIL. But I'm trying to envision the very worst case scenario is that we just have loads of money going to athletes that's unaccounted for, who can take that money, and even though that money is understood to be because they signed for a particular team, they still run off somewhere else and sign another deal. So that's first and foremost. Is these companies, I would hope they're so much smarter than I am, that they would make a condition that would tie these athletes, to at least tie them down to those universities. So we're all concerned about the transfer portal and what has happened to college football because of the transfer portal and guys switching from team to team to team. So in this one way, besides paying the players in such a way that they should be able to, as Americans, profit from their celebrity. So I'm all for that. The other benefit, the benefit to the college football fan, should be if these companies sign contracts, NIL deals with athletes, and say, here is your $3 million contract for the next 4 years, and you will be playing for Tennessee. As soon as you transfer, end of contract, and you have to pay back a portion of it. They want to play like adults. They want to be adults. They want to be treated like adults and have freedom like adults. Well, then they have to deal with the consequences like adults. If somebody sponsors our show and says, we're going to give you X number of dollars for the next 10 shows, and then I get sick or I just don't feel like doing the next 10 shows and I do 3, well, I'm not going to get paid. There are some NIL suitors, I'm sure, that are simply wanting to tie their brand to the brand of the athlete. But that's pretty rare. I got to think that's pretty rare. That's more of a basketball thing. Basketball's an individual sport. And if you're Michael Jordan and you're at North Carolina, well, you're going to be Michael Jordan Olympian, a Michael Jordan Chicago Bull. And wherever you go, you're a celebrity. Versus Bryce Young, sure, he's going to be great wherever, but he's the Alabama quarterback. So I got to think the money coming in is, if it's collected by, as Nick Saban explained in his tirade a few weeks ago, Alabama's collected their $2 million, according to him. I think it was $2 or $3 million for their 25 athletes that are benefiting from NIL. Then it's an Alabama connection. There are Alabama tied businesses that want to support Alabama athletes to see Alabama win football games and championships. So you say, Bryce Young, here's your big contract, but it's tied to staying with Alabama. So the one benefit in this, if the companies are smart, and they don't have to be that smart. Shoot, we all know this. We've talked about this ever since this started 10 months ago, was that it has to be tied to playing for a particular school. But there are going to be exceptions. Quinn Ewers, according to what I know, that that deal had nothing to do with him going to Ohio State or there being an Ohio State motivation from whomever paid him. Does anybody know who paid Quinn Ewers and what he's doing to earn this money? Do we know what the deal is? I think I've seen it, but that with all the numbers and the stats and the scores that stick to my brain, nothing concerning NIL sticks to my brain. I would so much rather have us talk about who won the 1987 national championship and what the playoff format should look like, 4 teams, 6, 8, 12, all that. And, you know, who's going to win the quarterback battle at Auburn and be talking about that. Then be talking about, you know, how much money does Ohio State have to raise? Is $13 million enough? Nauseating. Well, to real MVP, you can say poor Vandy, and I agree with you. But of course, the old joke is that, you know, certainly everybody else is going to be working for those Vanderbilt graduates 10 or 15 years from now that don't make the NFL, which is 90-some%. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
It's J-Dub calling in from Des Moines. How we doing?
J-Dub, I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, your comment about Vandy reminds me of the old Northwestern basketball cheer that had kind of an odd rhythm to it, but basically it came down to one day you'll be working for us.
Yes.
That was an old Northwestern basketball cheer.
Yeah.
And it was probably accurate. You know, I don't want to dwell too much on NIL. Here's my concern about it. It puts the boosters, the nasty, rotten SMU, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
It puts the dirt. It puts the dirty old corporate men on the country club back in an elevated place. One of the things that Saban got right, and that Mal Moore, the athletic director, got right at Tuscaloosa when they brought Saban is Saban said, I'm Lord and King. That's it. You bring me in here, I'm Lord and King. I call the shots. And you rich guys from Alabama Power, and you rich guys from BF Goodrich, and you guys from the local boosters, and all you guys from Golden Flake Potato Chip, and you think you can just write $1 million check and get in the skybox, and then you get to show up and practice and talk to the players and hang out. Those days are over. I'm calling the shots. You're the boosters. You're not the coaches. Thanks for your contributions. That helped run the program, but get out of the business of football. And we see the results in Tuscaloosa. I think other places, Kirby, Dabo, other places like that, I think the schools that have been successful have gotten control over their boosters. They're not letting the country club clique call the shots at their school anymore. Jimbo just did the reverse. Jimbo brought all the good old boys in with their big 10-gallon hats and their $50,000 pickup trucks, and he let them all pull up in and bring all their cow money in, and we'll just see how well that works. I don't think it's going to get him one natty. That's my concern about NIL, is that it brings people into the program who don't need to be into the program. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I got to think that when I see somebody operate like Nick Saban, and it's impressive most of the time, that, you know, there's a way to do it. And that's why people that can handle people and are, you know, masters at psychology without having a degree kind of rule this world and are able to get what they want and able to run teams and units and organizations and corporations and all that because they know how to. So they know how to do both. So I can see a Nick Saban being able to go to the little golf outings and have lunch with the big boosters and, you know, give them just enough access to make them feel good, you know, walk them through the facilities a couple times a year and, you know, let them shake hands with the players and take some pictures and so forth. But, you know, be able to draw the line and say, oh, we're going to let you hang out for, you know, to see us stretch and throw a couple out routes and then see ya. Thanks for being here. And he's able to draw the line and still make them feel good, make them feel welcome, but they still know who's in charge. Now, obviously, he comes with so much more authority and credibility than just about anybody else in the country because of what he's accomplished, that might be difficult for for Chip Kelly to do, or even on down the line for, the new coach at TCU, Sonny Dykes, to do, and deal with all these big Texas oil men who want to support TCU.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good thing. I mean, obviously, the booster money, the financial, the support, the outside money, all the schools need that. Not just Alabama. Northwestern needs it. Colorado State needs it. Everybody needs it. It's just when you don't have the authoritative figure at the top, and then those people who are given the money also start influencing decisions. And that was one of the things that Saban said that was overlooked at his little thing where everybody talked about, he made a comment about Jimbo. He talked about people giving money and then walking down the Walk of Champions in the Bryant Denny and going, well, I can't wait to see the ball game today because number 15 is going to play. But the only reason why he's in Tuscaloosa is because I got the money and got the deal and got him to come down here. And then they come to the game and they find out that number 15 is not playing because he hasn't earned a spot. And then they get upset and then they decide they're not going to contribute anymore. And he says, and that to me was Saban saying to the boosters, and that's who he was talking to. People don't forget, he was talking to people who were going to write checks for Alabama football. That's who his audience was. I mean, it's him and Nate Oates sitting there talking about, we need your money, gang. But he was also saying, we need your money, but you're not going to get it. You're not going to write a fat check to some kid, and then I'm going to look at that check you wrote and think, boy, I better get that kid on the field because I'm going to play who I think will help us win. I think that got overlooked.
I hear you.
I hope, Mark, I think I've said this before on your show, and I'm pretty sure you agree. I don't want to put words in your mouth. However they end up figuring it, and there'll be a solution. Right now, it's the Wild West. There's no marshal in town. We're not a state yet. We're just a territory. The law's a little flimsy, and everybody's got a gun at their side. Sooner or later, the law is going to come in, the marshal is going to come in, the cavalry is going to come in, and we're going to get things organized sooner or later. What I hope doesn't happen is that the football players at name your school, I don't care, if these players get termed legally classified as employees, that's the end of collegiate sports.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If you think that Ball State can afford to pay their football team and then also keep the women's tennis team, bad news in Muncie for the girls that are playing tennis on scholarship at Ball State. I mean, if they become employees, it's, I think, a disaster it's the end. I wonder what your thoughts were on that.
Well, we know that, it's been a long time since I've looked at this or tried to find the figures on it, but it's out there. I've looked at it before years and years ago in terms of who truly makes money. And I think people here would be most of them would be astounded as to how many schools lose money, even on football, because it's very expensive to play football. Oh, yeah. And you got to suit all these guys. You got to feed them. You got to train them. You got to have, even at a Ball State, have, not compared to Oregon or Ohio State, nice facilities, but nice facilities that any player in 1985, regardless of playing at Alabama or USC, would have loved to have been in at Ball State currently. They're still treated with a red carpet treatment, even a place like Ball State, relatively speaking to, decades gone by. So, food, gear, all the stuff that it's travel, all that stuff. And Flip on a Ball State game or a MAC game on a Tuesday or Wednesday night on ESPN. Count how many people are at the game. You can actually count them at the game. Most of those people get in for free. Shoot, I used to know from living in the Akron area, the Akron and Kent State games, you could go to your local bank and, they always had some kind of deal. Well, if you open an account, we give you 4 free tickets to the Kent State opener or whatever. They have empty stadiums. The way they're making money is ESPN makes money showing MAC games, and MAC, I assume it seems like they made a good move. When was it? 7, 8, 10 years ago when they said, you know what? Nobody watches us play football on Saturday. We're going to start playing on Tuesday and Wednesday because nobody else is playing, and we're going to have the college football map to our own. And, the TV ratings aren't what they are on Saturday, but still, hey, if you want to watch college football on Tuesday or Wednesday night, you're watching the MAC. And they have a deal with ESPN on all their digital platforms and everything else. And that's how they make whatever the dollar figure is. I don't know what it is, but it's all that money. And then they fund and support the field hockey and the tennis and everything else because nothing else makes money. Maybe men's basketball might make money. It's pretty cheap in comparison to football, and the MAC basketball's fairly popular relatively. So, but the rest of it all loses money. And I know that I saw these figures again. This might have been 10 or 15 years ago, but I can't imagine it's changed much, that even with football thrown in, that most of these programs, if you look at the 130, there's 35 or 40 of them making money. The rest of them. And then the next question is, well, why would you have football? Why would you have all these sports? Well, you want to have a university and be able to market and promote it for the regular student to say, we have an attractive situation here on campus where you can go to games and all that. It's a prestige thing, and it helps enrollment. So even though you lost $4.5 million running a sports program last year, and that's pretty standard, that's what you do. Most of them lose money already. So to your point, they're not going to be able to afford to pay football players.
Well, I'm involved with sideline photography for Iowa State and for Iowa as well. And when those two teams play in a Cyhawk game, the campuses are just a few hours apart, and it's an easy drive down 35 and 80. It's an easy interstate drive back and forth between the two campuses. But, Iowa brings their band to Ames, and Iowa State sends their band to Iowa City. So never mind the cost of the equipment, never mind anything else. Just think of the logistics of sending 300 students in their school-provided, school-paid-for uniforms on a bus to the game. You got to transport them. You got to feed them. And that's just the cost of you moving the band a couple of hours by bus. Never mind if you might have to fly the band somewhere. I remember when Iowa State went down and played in the Fiesta Bowl, what it took to move everything to Arizona. It's an incredible expense, So all this money, and then you think about, okay, well, it's got to come from somewhere. All right, well, now we're going to pay the players. Okay, so the bean counters are saying, all right, I've got to cut something. Well, what do you cut? You cut girls cross country. Well, okay, now all of a sudden, 15 girls who were getting an education, partially or fully provided by the university, now no longer have that chance. And when the men's golf team goes away, there goes 12 guys that were going to get a degree that might not now because they're not going to have the financial opportunity to do so. We're thinking about football. I'm thinking about the other 350 kids at these big schools that have a chance to get a degree and affect their lives and their families' lives, that are now going to be either crushed or damaged by the fact that all of a sudden we've got to play the football players X amount of dollars. So it's all intertwined, and it's a big mess. And God forbid that we turn them into employees.
Well, G-Dub, I agree with you. I don't want them to be employees. They're student athletes. And I know that brings a chuckle to a lot of people, and I understand why, because many of them are really not student athletes. But the majority of them are still student athletes. Even in a big-time football factory, most of them are still not going to make the NFL, and they either better be taking the schoolwork seriously or at least taking advantage of being an Ohio State or a Oklahoma or USC football player to say, man, I'm going to make connections and I'm going to set myself up with a ton of connections and be able to parlay this into a real business or job or whatever.
The last time I saw any kind of a report on this was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It might have been 2018, 2019. It said it was 2.8, so just under 3% of football players were going to get a single NFL contract. And of the ones who got an NFL contract, more than 2/3 of them, think about that, more than 2/3 of less than 3% were only going to have one contract. They would play 3 years or less. So the multi-million-dollar 5-year NFL career is one guy on your campus.
Is about 1%. Yeah. It comes out to, if it's about 3%, then about 1% is going to make multi-millions in the NFL. And the other guys that you mentioned, they're off to a good start in life. They made $600,000 for 3 years. And, that's, if they manage their money, then they can, and get a decent job, and they've salted away a nice little life savings to build on, but they still have to work. That's a small percentage.
Mark, thanks for taking my call. I'll step out of the way. I apologize to the room for eating up so much time.
Thank you, J-Dub.
Mash the thumbs up button, folks. It's got to be the first thing you do when you come into a Mark show. Before you even open and hit the button where it says live chat so you can see what's going on, hit the thumbs up. That's duty number one. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, J-Dub. See ya. Appreciate J-Dub reminding everyone of that. It's a very simple thing to do. Just hit the like button. Simple. And for those people that are going to be watching this on the replay, I don't know how long it takes YouTube to do this. So basically, as you guys know, for those of you that reached the live stream right at the beginning, is I'll start the live stream and then I'm still setting up the lights, and it's about 3 minutes before I sit down. So I'll go back afterwards and I'll cut that 3 minutes so people aren't sitting there waiting for 3 minutes for me to jump on. So I edit that off, but it does take YouTube who knows how many hours to process that for it to be available that way. But it's going to be a nice cut up job by me today with all this other business going on with electrical issues and lights going off and the sound went off and all that other business. So somebody here, well, I got to get to the Terrence West comment first and foremost, because I appreciate, Terrence, your contribution on a regular basis. Thank you so much for that, Terrence. And your super chat says, thank God it's Friday. Why can't Bama's freshmen score touchdowns? Bowers, A.D. Mitchell, Rango, all freshmen with touchdowns in the Natty. Well, Terrence, Bama's freshmen have scored touchdowns in the past, just not that group from this past season. So who would have been well, I don't know, Terrence. I will say that you did have a touchdown scored that saved Bama's rear end in the Iron Bowl by a freshman in Ja'Cory Brooks. If he doesn't catch that ball, and it was quite a catch with 4 seconds left, 12 seconds left, something like that, right at the end of the game against Auburn, Bama's not in the playoff. Or this would have been fascinating. Bama still beats Georgia, but with 2 losses, do they get into the playoff? They're the SEC champion, but they've got 2 losses to 8-4 Texas A&M and 7-5 Auburn. I really think under those conditions, as an SEC champion with 2 losses, let's say Bama had lost to Auburn, like I think any reasonable Bama fan would admit they should have lost to Auburn. Not meaning just that they got outplayed. If Auburn just takes care of the football and Tank Bigsby stays in bounds, Bama loses that game to Auburn. So before we completely throw dirt on Brian Harson's grave, let's consider they were a really good football team at times last year, at times. And that was one of those times. Obviously, that was the ceiling for Auburn. They beat Ole Miss too. They beat somebody else good. They beat Arkansas. Auburn beat Arkansas and Ole Miss, and they took Bama to the wire and should have won that game. Anyway, I do think under those circumstances, I think our playoff would have been, you know what? It might have been exactly the same. Just Bama would have been dropped to the 4 seed instead of being they were the 1. Yeah. They might have been the 4. I thought for a second that might have kicked Cincinnati out, but no, I think it would have just reseeded things. I think Bama still would have made it with an Auburn loss as things turned out and would have been our first 2-loss team in the playoff. I was curious to see and nobody else cares about this but me, but I think it was R.W. Tyndall who made a comment about being plucked up by the likes of ESPN or Fox. And R.W. Tyndall, there it is. So here's the deal. So, man, this is a show unto itself. I'm not going to get myself into it quite yet. I'll just say it this way. If those people see, I'm doing what I'm doing because I want to be able to say what I want to say. I don't want to be controlled by the man. Now, if the man wants to shell out a ton of money, then preferably what's going to happen is that I'm going to say, you know what, I'm not going to talk about politics. You don't have to worry about me saying this, and that. But other than that, you got to give me free reign. Like, this is still the voice of college football. This is still me. And shoot, I've had people that work in the business, like reputable people in the business, that have said, man, ESPN's stupid. Now, this is when I was working for ESPN, said those people are a bunch of morons because obviously they don't know what they have. They could, you know how much a drop in the ocean it would be for ESPN to clean all this up, give me a real set, real technical know-how, and set it up right, graphics, and make it just look $1 million better without spending $1 million. You pump 10 or 15 grand. You know, that's like nothing. You know, they spend millions of dollars just landscaping the place. I don't know how many people at ESPN used to tell me that. People in management and in high places at ESPN used to tell me that. So I'm right there with you, R.W. Tyndall. But the good thing about this is if we can make it go, then, you know, I have full control. That's what I want. But thank you so much for that. And then, of course, Joey's here just to let me know, hey, shopped at Amazon, forgot to use the link, made up for it here. So keep in mind, folks, and I appreciate the other super chat coming in. I will get to it in just a second, that you can bypass YouTube. And many of you know what that means. The chunk that YouTube takes, you can bypass that by, as was posted earlier by somebody. I forget who it was. I'll find it here in a second. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV. You can do it that way. Somebody was extremely kind who's obviously not technology savvy, not technically savvy. And I don't say that as a put down. It's just obvious, probably an older person, but extremely nice to send me a check this week. So thank you so much for that. Whether it was $1 or $2 or $20, just it's the thought that counts, as they say. Now, also, as I get to the next one here with, and I posted the link in the live chat. We just released a video a couple hours ago, top 10 tight ends in college football. So we've released our top 20 quarterbacks, top 10 running backs, top 10 wide receivers, top 10 tight ends. So check out those videos. And I got to say, I was a bit disappointed because we got to block somebody. We've got a bot in here. I was a bit disappointed because we started our series and YouTube is not letting me block an obvious bot. That's another thing that's ridiculous. Started our series this week. Is this the year? Usually when I post Ohio State or Michigan content on this channel, that's a no-fail. That's a no-brainer. I could do it every day. But I don't want to do that every day because this is the voice of college football. Auburn fans, we want to serve you. Texas A&M fans, we want to serve you. Well, everybody else is too. UCLA fans, Washington State fans, everybody. And I know I don't produce videos on every team. That's just humanly impossible. But that's the intent. But if I was just thinking about today, if I wasn't thinking about the future and the future goals of our channel, if I was just thinking about today, I would just produce Ohio State and Michigan content pretty much every day because that's a large portion of the fan base. Plus, it brings in other people and they get the best clicks. They get the most clicks. But I don't want to do that. But anyway, I was disappointed because I thought I had a good series started here. Is this the year? And I posted a Ohio State Michigan video Thursday. Nobody's watching that one. And then the one today that was posted was about Notre Dame. Is this the year Notre Dame? Fill in the blank. Watch the video. And I like the idea. What can I say? I like the idea, but and for a few people that watched it that like it, thank you so much for that. But otherwise, that's why some of these series, I never did this before. I used to just pound through these series. Man, I used to produce so much more content on this channel, but then it finally dawned on me after years and years and years that it actually hurts the channel to produce too much content, that I slowed down and I had to focus on all the other channels that we have. We've got 25 channels and about 10 of them are kind of dead. So we've got about 15 that are pumping pretty well. That sometimes I'll start a video series and I'll say, we're launching this video series. Let's go. I like this idea and we're going to go with it and produce some good content and get it out there. And people seem excited. And then I do a couple videos and they crash and burn. So I just say, you know what? We're giving up, pulling the plug on that series. So with the, is this the year series? I may have to stop that one as well. I did post one on the Iowa channel. It's concerning Iowa football. Is this the year Iowa? Yes, Uncle Rico, I should do a top 10 on the top 10s that I've done. Florida Buckeye likes the series, or he actually loves the series. Is this the year? So we got 3 out. We've got Notre Dame and Ohio State, Michigan 1, and a Iowa 1. And I've got 2 for Clemson that I've taken some notes on and ready to record. Yes, he says, exploring with Ben, hope you get all those new helmets soon. So yes, I got my my notification from Staples. Thank you, Exploring with Ben and Sam. I will pick up those helmets. I am looking forward to them. I think I saw the list of which helmets they are, but I'm not going to let anybody know that. I want to get the reaction, get the response when everybody sees the new helmets. I think there's 4 coming. And let's try to block this bot once again. No, YouTube is telling me there's an error. Refresh the page. If I refresh the page, I blow up the live stream. Oh, that's a good one, Yelly Belly. is this the year Nebraska actually makes a bowl game, which would be the first time since Frost's first year was 2018. Riley missed in 17. I believe it was 16. That would have been the last Nebraska bowl team, 2016. We got some, what I believe is going to be some encouraging and good news concerning the Nebraska channel today. All right. Lemansky says, viewers like drama. The Iowa channel doing well is my Iowa offense on life support. Yeah. 7:24 Eastern time at 8 o'clock Eastern. Stay right here. So you're going to see a shutdown this stream. We kick it back up with the Golden Blue Dude and Travis Kenobi from Last Word on College Football, West Virginia. Head on over to the West Virginia channel and please subscribe. Okay, Caleb, we kind of brushed through it, so we'll have to get to it. So we had one phone call concerning the next 10 national championships and then the hot seat segment. And then we got all sorts of phone calls about other things. So here we go, Caleb. We had some issues around the house here. I was not able to prepare for this show, and that's pretty much standard. I never prepare for these shows, but I did want to give this some thought. They had some things break. All right. So the next 10 national championships. So as I stated off the top, we got to take a few things into consideration. What recent coaching changes have occurred that are going to affect those type of programs? We've had coaching changes in the last one season that we have yet to even see at USC, Notre Dame, LSU, Miami in particular. They could really shake things up. The LSU program with Ed Ogeron versus Brian Kelly, Notre Dame with Brian Kelly versus now Marcus Freeman. Is that better or worse? We know what Brian Kelly brings to the table. Is Marcus Freeman an improvement? Is he the guy that is needed to elevate to the top, or is he going to be a bit of a bust? And we know that Brian Kelly's a first-rate coach. Miami, Manny Diaz, the job was too much for Manny. Mario Cristobal should be a significant upgrade, and NIL kicking in. Miami should be in good shape. USC should be a player now with Lincoln Riley. So those are the four programs with coaching changes that, and then of course, because of those programs adding coaches from significant programs, we also have the Oregon dynamic with a new head coach in Dan Lanning, not just a new head coach, but a new head coach who's never coached before as a head coach, and Brent Venables with the same thing, same situation in Oklahoma. So point number one would be national championships need to be considered in our projections based on head coaching changes. Number two, based on conference reconfigurations. Oklahoma, Texas, they go to the SEC. This may strengthen their programs, or it may beat them down. As we go to a possible 18 playoff or a 12-team playoff, I saw somebody make an asinine comment on Facebook about the SEC wants an expanded playoff because they're going to get more teams in. Brilliant. Thank you. You know what? The Big Ten's going to get more playoff teams in too. You know what? If it goes to 12 teams, every conference is going to get more teams in. Yeah, the SEC's not had any issue with the playoff as it stands. But the change in playoff format and expansion of teams is going to affect entry into the playoff, of course. And then, of course, conference affiliation with OU and Texas moving, the Big 12 being different. And then is there going to be other dominoes that are going to fall? So I think you're looking at coaching transitions, conference expansion and reconfiguration, NIL, those being the three biggest factors as we move forward in the next 10 years. So, if I had to project right this second who's going to win national championships, I would say in the next 10 years, Ohio State should win 10. And I guess that's going to do it, right? Ohio State's going to win 10 national championships in the next 10 years. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's the end of the show. No. The obvious is Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia are amazing. They're loaded. They're loaded with recruits. They're loaded with everything. They've been winning forever, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's look for somebody else. If somebody's going to elevate, it's Miami and it's USC. So don't hold me to this because this is off the top of my head. If I had to predict the next 10 national championships, and as the real MVP mentioned, Nick Saban, that could have a big factor on it because we know what he brings to the table. We don't know what his successor is going to bring to the table. And Clemson might, they're not done, but they might be done winning huge. So they may not win anymore. I'm going to go Bama 2, Georgia 2, Ohio State 2. That's 6. USC 1, Miami 1. That's 8. You know what? Notre Dame 1. Texas 1. They finally get a coach. How's that? What do we think of that? Alabama 2, Georgia 2, Ohio State 2, Miami, USC, Texas, Notre Dame, all with 1. We got a call. Let's take it right here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Lomansky, Mark. Good evening.
Lomansky. Good evening. What's going on?
I was going to send you some money so you could buy a generator in case all your outlets go out and you have some electrical backup.
Yes, I live in an old house, and yeah, I've had the electricity. When it was first inspected, when I first bought it, they said this entire house is rewired like backward. Like it still works, but it's completely backward the way it was wired. So.
You're not the only one. I wanted your opinion on two things. First question, isn't the elimination of divisions in the Big Ten inevitable? Your opinion?
Oh, the abolishment of the divisions inevitable?
Correct, like soon.
So the Pac-12 already did it, and we're going to find out whether there's going to be some unification possibly in college football, meaning a push to say, you know what, let's all get together. And since we're reconfiguring the playoff system, why don't we try to align when it comes to how many conference games we play, how we determine our championships. There's going to be a push for that. Now, whether that push is going to come from the right people that have enough authority and enough pull to get it done, I don't know. But there are people out there that want that. So when it comes to the Big Ten, yeah, I think the Big Ten looks at things and their concern is going to be that they don't want to make for uncomfortable rematches, that they just want to play out all the scenarios to say, you know, we don't want Ohio State and Michigan playing, 5 times in 10 years rematches. The week after they just played. What is that going to feel like? Is that going to take away from the game? They're also going to look at programs like yours, Iowa, Wisconsin. Is this a good thing? That are we going to be too top heavy and really taking away opportunities from really good football programs in that dynamic. But I think it's going to happen. Yes, if I were a betting man, I would say I'm about 70% sure it's going to happen.
And wouldn't you think when they polled the Big Ten teams or the Big Ten institutions that, how much say would a new entrant to the conference like Maryland, or how much say would Northwestern have when you compare their say to like the TV money matters? And so who's so pivotal to the big money? It's Michigan, Ohio State, maybe Penn State because of location out east for viewership to the East Coast. That would even encourage it more.
Yeah, so what you bring up is an interesting dynamic in any organization where you have obvious stronger members than others, but technically they all have a vote. So anytime it comes down to the wire, there's a vote and everybody has one vote. But in the process of getting to the point where you vote, there are certain players that can push and pull strings and make things move in their direction.
My second question, when this happens, that's how confident I'm going to hit. Not that I want to happen. I don't have an opinion whether it should happen or not, but I do believe it's going to happen also, like you do. When this happens, would this create pressure to head coaches? Like, now you're all in one division and your fan base, as far as buying tickets and sending extra money to get your seat on the 50-yard line, and you're I'll pick on Iowa since I graduated from Iowa, or you're at a Northwestern. If you look at the attendance and the size of stadiums, I think Michigan has the biggest stadium as far as allowing attendance in the country, let alone the Big Ten. The Horseshoe's big too, but I would think, would it lead? I'm leading into your hot seat of coaches down the road. I think that put a hell of a lot of pressure on being patient with head coaches based on the economics of college revenue. What do you think?
Well, yeah, there have been many cases in the last 10 years of coaches who, sure, they weren't succeeding on the field, but their ouster was also determined by lackluster attendance that accompanied the poor record. So what you're saying is, okay, when we've got Iowa in particular, so do you think that the fan base is going to be disenchanted by a new structure in the conference that's going to make it more difficult to reach the Big Ten championship game?
Pretty loyal fan base, so I think it comes back to just financials. If they can put enough people in the seats to run their program, and that's what Kurt Ferentz has done an outstanding job, is that the economics of putting people in Kinnick is been so good. The athletic department says an average 8-4 record over the years is just fine. We're happy with our football coaching staff. When Iowa fired their last head coach many years ago, that was referenced in decline attendance on the budget, was mentioned in the press conference when they made a change to their long tenured current head coach. And so I think it's really linked. I guess for me, I think it's so tied to economics and the almighty dollar. I really think it's tied very closely to that. And I think when you look at Illinois' attendance compared to historical, Bielema is there because of economics and in a large part to raise enthusiasm and put, butts in the seats. And, That's pretty key.
Yeah, if you're Illinois, you can improve your financial situation in a couple different ways. You can go to a bowl game, which obviously that bowl money needs to be split among the conference, but you do add to, a number of things that are intangible to the benefit of going to a bowl game. But yeah, I don't know how much it would cost to go to an Illinois football game. I'm sure there's a lot of deals out there because of the number of empty seats, but when they've produced good football programs, good football teams, they've had 60,000 people in there on a regular basis, something north of that even, versus 32,000 in the stands. And so 30,000 people per 7 football games at home per year. It's a lot of money difference.
Don't you think that Nebraska going to the Big Ten as they look to the future of TV revenue and made the switch to the Big Ten out of economics years ago?
Yeah, so even back then, and it's been exasperated since, the Big Ten was making more money than the Big 12. So Nebraska, based on everything I've gathered, made the move for a couple different reasons. One was the annoyance of the favoritism given to Texas more than anything, but also Oklahoma in the Big 12. And then on top of that, that they had an opportunity to just make more money in the Big 10. Yeah, there was more money in the Big 10. There still is, even with having more teams. The division is much higher than in the Big 12. So they made a financial move. Plus, they felt as though they'd be treated fairly, what they considered to be fairly, like an equal member in the Big 10 versus being subservient to Texas's wants and needs.
Well, college football historically has been great for 95% or more of the average student athlete who gets to participate in something other than the classroom, and we really I worry about those kids going in the future. I have a nephew that plays University of California at Davis. He actually played early on the offensive line. He was recruited by Boise State, and he ended up going to University of California at Davis. And I'll end my call with this, Mark, that I sure hope those kids that play at smaller programs, that enjoy the beauty of sports and education, that there's so much pressure on the system that just like there's fewer farms in America, fewer dairy farms, there's fewer commercial, tightly held banks in America, that we tend to have the power concentrated in the hands of the few. And thank God the voice of college football is an independent with a niche, and I think a very strong niche. So I'll end the call with this, and thank you for your program.
Lemansky, thank you so much for your contribution, your support. Always appreciate you being here. Have a good night. So interesting comments here in the chat. I always enjoy, so I do my best to read these comments, and I am not a multitasker by any stretch, but to read the comment, and that's why every so often you'll probably notice that I'll be like kind of feeling my way through the answer to a question, because you know what, kind of missed that question because I was getting so enamored with the comments in the chat. So the one that I pegged here, so we had a number of Georgia people here, including Harry. Carson Beck will be the quarterback in 2023 and light it up. I am curious to see, of course, we got a loaded Georgia quarterback room, so you got situations at Ohio State, Georgia, more than anybody, Georgia, but Ohio State as well. USC, Texas, where we've got multiple big name, big time quarterbacks that will be expecting to play. So they're either going to notice that, okay, I'm making progress, I'm about to win the job, I'm really competing, or boom, this dude took it away from me, I'm gone. Carson Beck in 2023. So Stetson Bennett this year, it's going to be fascinating to see how well he plays. I made the comment on here after I ranked him where I ranked him. Check out my top 20 quarterback rankings because I don't remember exactly where I had Stetson Bennett, but I got a range in which where I placed him. And I had a few people criticize where I placed him, and one person called and questioned my ranking of Stetson Bennett and then said something like, can you imagine there's no way he's going to throw 30 touchdowns in a season? I said, well, he threw 29 last year and he shared time with JT Daniels. JT Daniels took away how many pass attempts from Stetson Bennett? 50, 60? But yeah, Stetson Bennett, yes, he did well last year, Gloria. Absolutely. And before that, excuse me just one second. I want to make sure I can actually talk. My knock on Stetson Bennett before the playoff run was similar to what we saw in the SEC championship game, similar to what we saw in the Florida game that they lost the previous season. In the Alabama game they lost the previous season was he did really well. He played well enough for 90% of the game. 90% of the game, Stetson Bennett was enough to win. And I don't mean just enough like hand the ball off 80 times and throw 3 decent passes. I mean be a factor in the offense. Throw for 250 yards, throw 2 or 3 touchdowns, play really well. But there was always 1, 2 mistakes that were just, and every quarterback makes mistakes, but his mistakes were just backbreakers. Check out the Alabama game from 2020. They played an amazing first half, both teams. And even though the score was a blowout at the end at 41-24, that was a 27-24 game with about 8 minutes left. He just made a couple just cringeworthy plays, like he made his last one at the SEC championship game on that pick six. The pick six and the ball where he rolled out, he was flushed out of the pocket. He held onto the ball too long, waited through the pick in the red zone. He stopped doing that. And my goodness, I don't know if many of us can relate to being in a situation where we were criticized. Really, none of us can, because we don't do anything that's watched by as many people as Stetson Bennett is being watched by. So you're seeing criticism come from all over the place. And you try, and you leave your guts on the field continually, and you get criticized and beaten down. Things don't turn out. And now, this is the first time we're going to see Stetson Bennett on a field where he is the national champion. He proved he could do it. He basically had a play with 5 minutes left in that game where, even though it wasn't his fault, it could be spun that he blew the national championship. You know, he gets thrown down. He tries to whip the ball out of bounds. He kind of whips it sideways. It comes out of his arm. It's ruled a fumble. Bama scores to take the lead. That could have been the end of that game, and we'd be going into this season with just a much different, like, Stetson Bennett needs to be replaced. He gave it a shot, but look what he did at the end of the championship game. He blew it. Now he's a national championship quarterback who overcame. He's not a national championship quarterback who. He's not a national championship quarterback like Greg McElroy, 5 for 11 against Texas with 57 yards passing. He's not a national championship quarterback like, for as great as A.J. McCarron was in his role. Was there any pressure on him in 2012? He pretty much stepped on the field and Amari Cooper was wide open every other play, and he's handed the ball to Eddie Lacy, and Notre Dame can't stop anything. And, they're playing a scrimmage. That's not the game that Stetson Bennett had to play. Yes, as Jeff Webster says, he played really well in those games, except for one or two plays. So he stopped making those issues. Gloria says the pass to A.D. Mitchell changed my mind on him. I think that was right out of the turnover possession that Bama scored on. Kirby didn't say, you know what, we're down, what was it, 18-15? We're down 18-15. Let's grind it out. We can do a 4-minute drive, running the ball, Cook, White, Cook, White, Cook. You know, we're going to see if we get pushed into a 3rd and 7, then we'll have to throw. Nope. Play action right out of the gate. And Stetson Bennett just, whew, and he gave it. Kirby said, this boy, he knows him better than anybody that's not named Bennett. So he basically knew this guy has what it takes to step up to this challenge. And he did. So Kirby Smart put the game in Stetson Bennett's hands, and he pulled through. Who's going to have a better statistical season this year? Andrew asks. Stetson Bennett or JT Daniels? Well, first of all, the question is interesting. Just who's better? I don't know. I would have answered that question, JT Daniels, this time last year, but I don't know right now. And let's get some bots out of the way if we can. So let's understand JT Daniels is going to have to throw the ball more. Stetson Bennett is a better runner with a football that may help him in the pass game. You know, where JT Daniels is going to maybe force a throw or two or have to throw it away. Stetson Bennett's going to be able to escape the rush, take off, and run for 12 yards. I'm going to go with Stetson Bennett, but not by much. I think they're going to be very comparable numbers. And, of course, Stetson Bennett's going to be playing better defenses, but he's going to have better weapons. And he's got the best tight end in college football. And if you watch my tight end video, he not only has the best tight end in college football, he has the blank tight end in college football. Larry, who's back, USC or Texas? USC is going to be first. USC is going to be first. Roger Dodger says Sark gets fired after losing to TCU. Sounds kind of ridiculous, but it's not, Roger Dodger. Texas has so much money. If they're frustrated with 5-7, and then whenever that game is going to be played, they're 3-5. Maybe. Willie Taggart, Florida State had much less resources after 21 games, said, that's enough. That's enough. And Texas knows that they need that they're embarrassed right now by what's going on, and that they can't win the 3rd or 4th best conference in America. They can't even get close to winning it, 2018 aside. But they've got to get ready for the SEC. And as Andrew says, question, will 7 wins? Will 7 win? Sark win 7 games this year? Yeah. Michael says, now this is always a big surprise to me. This is always surprising to me when we talk about, okay, who is the all-time best programs or the best programs now or the best players at these positions? I don't know. Somebody's going to have to explain this to me, but it seems as though USC fans typically fight for USC players and vote for USC, and Alabama fans vote for Alabama players. And so I'm kind of shocked by this, but Michael, Notre Dame fan, is telling us that Michael Mayer is the best tight end in college football based off NFL draft analysis and recruiters. Well, you know what, Michael? I kid because I care. I am just slightly making fun, but you're right. Michael Mayer could be considered the best tight end in football. I don't think he is, but Like if somebody came down and said, if God came down right now and said, Mark, you're wrong, he is the best, that would not surprise me. Yes, he's right there. I tend to like Bowers better. I just thought he was amazing down the stretch. But Michael Mayer, his great. And if somebody else threw up a top 10 and had Michael Mayer number 1, I wouldn't say you don't know what you're talking about. There is no definite best quarterback in the country, best running back in the country, best wide receiver in the country. That player does not exist. Michael is telling us that JT Daniels will have a better offense with West Virginia and a better play caller. A better offense? West Virginia is going to have a better offense than Georgia. West Virginia. Michael, West Virginia is going to have a better offense than Georgia. All right, Tim. I think he means better offensive scheme, not players. Well, if that's the case, he might be right. Okay, maybe. Graham Harrell, Todd Monken. Okay. Possibly a more wide open or explosive offense, or I don't even know if explosive is going to be the best word. They're going to be more wide open. All right. Yes, Gloria, Brock Bowers the best, according to me and everybody else in the world, pretty much. Andrew was asking about West Virginia or Pitt week 1. Well, my predictions will be available, certainly on Patreon. Join the Discord. Man, we haven't talked up the Discord forever. Where's Tim? There he is. Tim. I'm not saying I buy it, just what must have been going through his mind. The players are not close. Yes, they're not close, but I get it. That makes more sense. All right. Is UCLA underrated? Well, UCLA went 8-4, and that was a good improved team, but they were not Texas A&M 8-4. They were not Penn State 7-6. They were not that good. One Scoop John, yes. People join the Discord. So here's my sales pitch on the Discord. We've got 114 people here. We've been up to about 130, and you guys are having fun talking college football with each other, with me, but mostly with each other. You could do this all the time on our Discord. Go to Patreon and search Mark Rogers TV on Patreon. Go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV. Then once you do that, you can join the Discord. I will send you a link, and that will get you into Discord, and that will be the way you get into Discord each and every time. If you have any issues with it, you can always ask me, of course, at markrogerstv@gmail.com. But I would also say that you get enough people here in One Scoop John and Tim and Eric and Exploring with Ben. You can ask them if you're having issues with getting into Discord. But man, we need some fresh blood in Discord. We've got about 50 or 55 people that have the link that can get into Discord and talk college football all the time. And we've got it divided by conference. So we've got a national feed. We've got different conference chats. Now, as we get closer to college football, if I see a big groundswell for Ohio State, Notre Dame, there's all this Ohio State, Notre Dame talk. You know what? Boom. We'll start an Ohio State Notre Dame channel just for that week, for that game. If we get an influx of 1,000 USC people, we'll start a USC channel. We'll just be USC talk. We'll do whatever you want. If we need to start a recruiting category, just with recruiting chat, but join us on Discord. Go to patreon.com. You see it right there, Mark Rogers TV, Patreon. Sign up for Discord right there. And you get Patreon. All the Patreon benefits. And what those are is I will deliver to you based on your requests, scheduling previews. Also, you get my predictions. I know that doesn't apply right now, but you will get my predictions. And David Greenshield would tell you, you would make money with my predictions, and you get the predictions of 15 to 20 other media people. And you get all sorts of stuff that you can take advantage of on Patreon that I don't even know if most of our patrons at our Voice of College Football community realize, even though I remind them on a regular basis. Exclusive live streams per request, scheduling previews per request. And again, Discord. And Falconer X is here. And where's the super sticker from Falconer X? I have to get that to the screen. And then we've got a Falconer X super chat. Don't block the U helmet with your head. Okay, I'm going to talk like this the rest of the time. Okay, sorry. Sorry, Falconer X. This is... Most assuredly, this is worth $3.05 for me to do this. Absolutely. Of which YouTube's going to give me about $1.85. Thank you, Falconer X. I think what we're going to... Yeah. No, I'll stop right there. I'll stop right there. I was going to say... that I've threatened this the other night when I got sick of people going nuts about the helmets. I was annoyed with, I got to admit, I got maybe noticeably annoyed with people complaining about the helmets. I thought, you know what? For about a month, I'm going to clear all the helmets. No helmets. No helmets for like a month. Not going to be able to see any helmets for a month. D. Brown says, no offense, Mark. No offense taken. I would not take offense to anything anyone would say unless they were telling me something that was factually wrong. That's the only thing that I take offense to when somebody says, you said this. And it's like, no, I did not. That's the only thing I take offense to. No offense, Mark, but I have not found a YouTube channel yet that I take that seriously to pay more money for. It's not you, it's me. I give super chats every now and then, though. Yeah. That's perfectly fine. We don't, you know what? If this worked the right way, and we'll get there, we don't need anyone to give any money. We do now, but if I got sponsors and we get the number of views that we need to these YouTube videos between sponsors and affiliate marketing, Amazon, and sponsors, put those three things together. Affiliate marketing, sponsors, and ad revenue from the views that we get. That's all we need. Okay. Oh, I'm past game time, showtime, West Virginia Live. I got to go. Keep it right here. Just stay right here. Everybody just stay right here. We'll be back in 2 minutes max.